Hello everyone, welcome to Miss Doc T. This is Dr. Farheen, General Medicine resident, and today let's discuss a very trending topic right now, and that is mucormycosis, so called the black fungus. So, mucormycosis is also known as zygomycosis and it includes the species Mucorrhizopus absidia. And these are opportunistic fungal infections. Now, what is an opportunistic infection? This fungus is present as a normal contaminant of the environment. So, it can be present in the soil, in the dust, or in the air, or it can also be present as a normal part of human flora. But it will not cause infection in everyone. It causes infection only in immune suppressed states, like when a person has used broad spectrum antibiotics or HIV, cancer, patient with uncontrolled diabetes, and use of high steroids. So, opportunistic infection means infection occurs only in immune suppressed individuals. Now, let's look at some factors that support fungal growth. The first one is immune suppressed states like HIV, cancer, steroids, and antibiotics. The second one is hyperglycemia because glucose favors the growth of fungus. The third one is acidic environment, favors the growth of fungus. The fourth one is increased amount of free iron content. So, it is common when there is uncontrolled diabetes, when there is acidosis in a patient like diabetic ketoacidosis or lactic acidosis, or when a patient has iron overload. So these are the factors which can support fungal growth. Now, can this fungus grow in immunologically competent individuals? Then the answer is yes. This fungus can grow when there is direct inoculation of the fungus into the cutaneous or into the subcutaneous tissues of a normal person, which can occur because of some penetrating injuries or thorn pricks or contaminated needles and contaminated catheters or dressings. Now we'll look at the pathogenesis of mucormycosis. So the spores are present everywhere in the environment, in the dust, in the air, and in the soil, and every human being is exposed to them, but infection occurs only in an immune suppressed state. So these spores first will germinate to produce hyphae, and these hyphae in mucormycosis have no septa and they are broader. Tuft of hyphae form a mycelia. Now what happens is, after inhaling, the spores germinate inside the upper respiratory tract and produce the mycelia. And the worst part of this fungus is that these mycelia are highly invasive in nature. So now this mycelia cause invasion, and this can invade the adjacent tissues leading to necrosis, and this necrosed area is black in color, and that is why it has got the name black fungus. And it can also invade the blood vessels, which is known as angioinvasion, and after invading the blood vessels it can disseminate to other parts of the body. So this highly invasive nature of this fungus has made it life threatening. So this fungus has a very high mortality if not treated early. Okay, now we'll look at the clinical manifestations of this fungus. So it can cause varied diseases like rhinoorbital and cerebral mucormycosis, pulmonary disease, gastrointestinal disease, cutaneous disease, and disseminated disease. Now we'll look at each one of them. So the first of the clinical feature is the rhinoorbital and cerebral mucormycosis, and this is the most common one and very important to remember. So as the name indicates, it will involve the nose and paranasal sinuses, then spread to the orbit and then to the brain. And it is caused by Rhizopus oryzae species. Now, first it starts in the nose, then it spreads to the orbital tissue, and from there to the trigeminal nerve, especially the sensory root, and from there it will involve the brain. Now, when the nose is involved, it causes features like nasal block, sinusitis. So, sinusitis can again cause headache, sinus pain, or fever. Then, nasal discharge. Now, from the nose, this fungus being highly invasive, it can directly invade the palate. So, if the palate is involved, then it will cause necrosis over the palate, and it can further progress to cause perforation of the palate. This is the picture of necrosis over the palate. and this is the perforation. Next, it involves the orbital tissue. So it will completely destroy the orbital tissue and it can cause periorbital edema, proptosis and blindness. So this is a picture. And then it will spread to involve the trigeminal nerve sensory root. Now the sensory root of the trigeminal nerve supplies the face. So involvement of this root causes facial pain and facial numbness. Then it involves the brain. It can reach the brain by two ways. So from the ethmoid sinus it can spread to the frontal lobe of brain, or from the sphenoid sinus it can spread into the cavernous sinus of the brain. Now if the frontal lobe is involved, it will present with altered sensorium, and if the cavernous sinus is involved, the sinus contains 3rd, 4th and 6th cranial nerves, so it will present with multiple cranial nerve palsies, and because 3, 4, 6 supply the extraocular muscles, it will present with ophthalmoplegia. So here, what are the features which we need to remember? Nasal block, sinusitis, nasal discharge, periorbital edema, facial pain, facial numbness, altered sensorium and ophthalmoplegia. So these features are really important to remember in mucormycosis. Next, the second form of the disease is pulmonary mucormycosis, and this is the second most common form of mucormycosis, the first being the rhinoorbital and cerebral. So when the spores enter the upper respiratory tract and they reach through the bronchi all the way to the lungs, they can either directly involve the parenchyma of the lungs or they can involve the blood vessels surrounding the alveoli. When the parenchyma is involved, it will lead to consolidations or nodule or cavitation, and the patient may present with cough, dyspnea or chest pain. And if the fungus invades the blood vessels, the patient presents with hemoptysis. This is the complete picture of a pulmonary disease. Next is the gastrointestinal disease. This is a rare form and it usually occurs when there is ingestion of the fungal spores, that too in immune suppressed states and in premature infants also. Now again, this fungus can either invade the tissues causing tissue destruction. This presents with non-specific abdominal pain, abdominal distension or perforation, or it can invade the blood vessels presenting with gastrointestinal bleed. But this is a rare manifestation. Next is the cutaneous disease. So like I already discussed this, cutaneous involvement occurs when there is direct inoculation of the fungus into the cutaneous or into the subcutaneous tissues, either because of penetrating injuries, thorn pricks or contaminated needles, contaminated dressings or catheters. Now, this fungus being highly invasive in nature, once it penetrates the skin, it can move through the fascia into the muscle and all the way up to the bone. So it is a highly invasive fungus. So it will cause necrotizing fasciitis. This is a picture. So this will definitely need surgical debridement as a treatment modality. Next, the fifth form is disseminated disease. So this occurs because the fungus can invade the blood vessels. So from the blood vessels, it will disseminate to brain, kidney, peritoneum or even to bone. And disseminated disease will have a high mortality. Okay, now we'll look at the diagnosis of mucormycosis. So first and foremost thing to remember is that it's very important to have high clinical suspicion so that we can start empirical treatment as early as possible. The first modality of diagnosis is diagnostic nasal endoscopy that shows necrotic tissue which is black in color. So this is the picture. The second thing is that a nasal swab can be taken and then send it to stain by 10% potassium hydroxide or culture it in sabro-dextrose agar, which is used for fungus at 30 to 37 degrees centigrade for 3 to 4 days. Now on staining, so you can see the hyphae. So these are the fungal hyphae and you can see there are no septa and they are broad and they are branched at almost 90 degrees. So they are broad aseptate hyphae with branchings. So just to compare, this is a picture of septate hyphae, but this is not seen in mucormycosis. Now when you look at the culture shows grey, white, thick, cottony and fluffy colonies. The next modality of investigation is to take CT nose and paranasal sinuses. So this will not only show the fungal growth but is also important to look at the bony erosions. Next is MRI. So MRI is especially important if there is orbital or cerebral disease. Then is biopsy. So biopsy of the necrotic tissue followed by histopathological examination to demonstrate the thick ribbon-like aseptate hyphae. So biopsy is the gold standard of diagnosis. Please remember this. Now we'll look at some imaging findings. Now see the CT picture of the paranasal sinuses. On the abnormal side, you can see that the sinuses is showing opacity, and this opacity is because of fungal growth. So this is another picture where you can see the inferior wall of the orbit is eroded. So this shows bony erosions. This is rhino-orbital mucormycosis. Now let's look at pulmonary mucormycosis. So you can see a CT lung lesion which looks something like this. There is an inner area of ground glass opacities with surrounding area of consolidation. So this picture is known as reversed halo sign, also known as the Etoll sign. So I'll show you another picture. So you can see multiple such lesions where there is inner ground glass opacities and surrounding peripheral area of consolidation. So this is known as the reversed halo or the Etoll sign. Now just we'll look at it briefly. So what is a reversed halo sign or Etoll sign? Like I already said, there is an inner area of ground glass opacity surrounded by proper consolidation. Now opposite of this, that means inner area of consolidation with surrounding ground glass opacities is known as the halo sign. Okay. So inner ground glass opacity surrounding consolidation is reversed halo sign. Inner consolidation and surrounding ground glass opacity is halo sign. Now this is a picture. So you can see it, and this is a picture of halo sign. Now where can you see the reversed halo sign? One which we already discussed, pulmonary mucormycosis, and other conditions include cryptogenic organizing pneumonia, Wegener's granulomatosis, also in COVID-19, and radiation pneumonitis. Now where you can see halo sign? Pulmonary aspergillosis. So remember this, one fungus, that is mucormycosis, is causing reversed halo sign on CT, and the other fungus, aspergillus, is causing the halo sign on CT. Other conditions include mycobacterial infections like tuberculosis and Mycobacterium avium complex, adenocarcinoma of lung, and also hemorrhagic lesions of lungs like pulmonary hemorrhagic nodules and hemorrhagic metastasis. So this part is important to remember, especially if you are a PG aspirant. Now we'll look at the treatment. So the first line of treatment is to use liposomal amphotericin B, which belongs to polyene group of antifungals. Now it is given at a dose of 5 mg per kg body weight per day if there is no CNS involvement, and 7.5 to 10 mg per kg body weight per day if the CNS is involved. It is given in 5% dextrose solution over 2 to 3 hours as an infusion. The second line is azole group. Only 2 azoles are FDA approved for treatment of mucormycosis. The first is the posaconazole, which is given at a dose of 300 mg twice a day for day 1 and 300 mg once a day from day 2. And the second drug is isavuconazole, which is given at a dose of 200 mg thrice a day for day 1 and day 2, followed by 200 mg once a day from day 3. So the first line of antifungal, that is the liposomal amphotericin B, is given as an IV for 3 to 6 weeks, followed by an oral azole for 3 to 6 months, depending upon the follow-up of the patient. And the third modality of treatment is surgical debridement. So now, what are the take-home points? So first point is that prevent immune suppression in patient by avoiding unnecessary steroids and higher antibiotics. The second point is that proper glycemic control, because glucose favors fungal growth. Proper use of N95, that means don't use the same mask again and again. And final point is to avoid damp and dusty environment, because that is where the fungal spores are excessively present. But why is this so important to know? Because as a doctor, if there is any best thing which we can do in mucormycosis, then it is only to prevent this from happening in the very first place. Okay, now if you are a PG aspirant, this may be a potential topic for PG entrance this year. The gold standard for diagnosis is biopsy with histopathological examination to demonstrate the hyphae. The drug of choice is liposomal amphotericin B. And The CT picture of pulmonary mucormycosis shows the reversed halo or the atoll sign, where there is inner area of ground glass opacities with surrounding consolidation. The halo sign is seen in Aspergillus, where there is inner area of consolidation followed by ground glass opacities, the opposite of what we have seen. So I really hope that this video helped you. Thanks a lot for watching. Hope you liked it. Let's meet again with another new topic. Till then, just take care, be happy, stay safe, and remember, prevention is always better than cure.